Welcome everyone to our DT alumni panel with the title InnoBite, What Comes After the Sugar Curse? Thank you all so much for joining. I am so happy to see so many of you here, and I hope you had a great start with the first set of presentations from this year's students. Only a few years ago, I myself was also a design thinking student at the University of St. Gallen, and today I'm very excited to be here with three great other alumni from HSG that will chat with me about their use of design thinking and in general human-centered design after the design thinking course at university. But let me introduce the panel guests to you first. First of all, we have Friederike Hoffman. She worked very closely together with Falk in the first few years to build up the design thinking course as a teaching assistant during her PhD at HSG. After her PhD, she started her corporate career at Swisscom and is now in the management of Swisscom, a huge Swiss telecom firm. Then we have Martina Rakaric. She did the design thinking course 2013-2014 on a UBS project and has an informatics background. After her studies, she worked for many different companies such as Six, Twint, Zürcher Kantonalbank, BCG, and now she's at Amazon Web Services. My third guest today is Naomi Haefner. She did the course 2012-2013 with FIFA. In the meanwhile, she became assistant professor of technology management at the University of St. Gallen. I myself am Martina Egli, and I did the design thinking course in 2017-2018. I am the Sugar ambassador for the University of St. Gallen, and I work as a co-CEO of Zeilenwerk. Zeilenwerk is a software and web application company that tries to center the human in their development. But now let's start with the questions. Please feel free to write your questions in the chat and we will try to answer them after the panel for the candidates. So let's start with the first question. Friederike, you have worked at Swisscom for quite some time now and seen many different stations and had many different positions as well. How is human-centered design and design thinking practiced at Swisscom? And how do you, as a head of Connected Business Solutions, ensure that human design thinking mindset is lived? You're still muted.
Oh, sorry. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much for the great question. Swisscom used to have their own department just for human-centered design. So the focus and the emphasis was always very high in our work. Over the time, we decided and learned that we need to incorporate it into every department that we're having. So starting from sales, market access, everyone needs to live and feel what human-centered design really means. So you can say that it is the core of my job, my responsibility to ensure that we not only listen to customers, but we make sure that product development, delivery, and all the other units work very closely together with whatever is happening in the market, and not just, listening to everything the customer wants or says they want, but really understanding what the need is and what technology shifts really mean for their business. I hope that answered parts of your question.
Yes, I think so. Maybe do you also have like a concrete example on how you live this mindset, or how you understand the clients like really in your everyday life?
Well, after being in St. Gallen and helping Falk to teach the course for a couple of years, I can't really work differently anymore. So for me, it's very important to learn firsthand what's going on. I visit customers usually when something is difficult, not working as it should be. I get the bad stuff. The success is for someone else. Huh? That's for my sales. So with that lens, I make it a priority to listen and to really understand what's going on and making sure that the large organization that Swisscom is really follows through upon what's happening. That is usually uncomfortable. You know, we invest large chunks of money to develop a certain product, and then we realize, ooh, that's not where the market is going. So that very hard decisions, but we're always right when we do that, and when we follow what's happening, and when we lose closely to what a design-centered and human design-centered approach really is about. We need to change quickly. We need to adapt, and we need to be very, very present and not fall in love with our products and services.
Yes, very interesting point. And I think, yeah, also very interesting in such a huge company such as Swisscom. Maybe Martina, you told me in our previous chat that you've worked at many different companies, and this impressed me very much that you have such a broad experience. Maybe can you tell us a little more on how you experienced the customer focus in those different companies, and also maybe if you have some examples on how you live this at Amazon Web Services right now?
Sure, thank you so much for the question. Very interesting. So yeah, after design thinking ended, I transitioned into UBS, who was also my design thinking partner. And where we worked at UBS, at the innovation think tank, we took on our persona who we had, Amber, and we always asked the question, what would Amber do? How is Amber reacting to the product? What does Amber want? And we try to always have Amber in mind, and the think tank with UBS took that on. I followed on and went to Twint, was part of the innovation team, and there we were always holding weekly and bi-weekly user interviews for early stage products. Meaning we were always and permanently in this observe phase. To test, we started with sketches. We tested some sketches idea followed by low fidelity and high fidelity prototypes, just to ensure that Twint, how the product is turning, fits the customer needs. And also at Twint, what we did was we did weekly team testings within the whole firm. We went out to Coop and tested, hey, can I pay now? Or does it work? Does it not work? How quick is the user experience? So we took that very seriously. And even in the next Zürcher Kantonalbank, where I transitioned next, it was the same story. We had users coming in for the e-banking mobile app and for the e-banking. We started with sketches, and we were always involving the user early on, not just at the end, but from the sketches. And I think that's very important in financial services, to see that the local financial services are doing a great job involving the customer and taking this customer obsessed approach. My current role is at Amazon Web Services, and I think we spoke shortly about that. So at the current company that I work, we have 14 leadership principles. And one of the 14 leadership principles at Amazon is customer obsession. The emphasis is always on the users. And at Amazon, it's said that 90% of the features are coming from customer requests for Amazon Web Services. And the other 10% is what customers cannot yet formulate, but what we can innovate on their part. And coming back to Amber that we had at our design thinking challenge, you can hear many stories about many Amazon leaders saying we often have a chair in the room that is empty to make sure, do we think about the customer? Because sometimes you cannot have customer in all the meetings, but if you have a chair, and that's what we had at Twint and at UBS, if you have this persona, for us it was Amber, in your mind, always, it's kind of a space, especially face-to-face. I know now virtual it's a bit trickier, but if you have a space and you have, okay, this is Amber, this is my persona, you will always think about the user. And I think it's very well to see that the companies I'm choosing and working for, they are taking the design thinking approach in some sense or the other.
Yes, I really like that example with the empty chair from you, Martina. It's really, I think it's really important that the customer always sits with us in the meetings. Um, Maybe next question is for Naomi, because Naomi is more doing of research in the field of AI and how technologies can be used to improve the innovation process. And as I understood, this tackles more the problem space in the design thinking circle. Maybe Naomi, can you give us some examples on how those technologies can help to make product development more human-centric?
Yeah, great. I'll be happy to try to give that a shot. So the way that I like to think about it is kind of divvying up the innovation process into two major steps that you have to undertake, which is first identifying what kind of problem you want to look at, right? And then in a second step, actually developing the different solutions for that problem that you've identified. And then what I think is helpful too when you consider those two different tasks, if you will, is to think about where humans tend to fall short in a way, which is number one, we're kind of limited in how much information we can process just cognitively. And that's obviously a part where machines can be really helpful. And then a second issue that we usually bump into, which has been identified by researchers, is that we tend to look for solutions to problems in what are known as sort of like local optima. So you could kind of try to find solutions that are pretty related to what you're already working on. Mm-hmm. And so bridging that gap to find something more innovative, more creative is actually not that easy. And I think this is where you can have this split between or not split, but different approaches to solving problems that can be very helpful. So AI technologies, as they're existing right now, are really good at overcoming that problem of limited information processing capacity. And design thinking is really helpful with overcoming that local search problem. So finding more creative solutions. So bringing those two things together can be really helpful. And then also in my research, I've found that you can use AI technologies to do things like detect anomalies, which can be a very helpful starting off point to then go in and use design thinking approaches to try to really tease out what's the actual issue. We've discovered there's something weird going on. Why is this happening? So answering that why question and really delving deeper into the root causes of issues and finding creative solutions to them is where design thinking can be supported by AI technologies.
Mm. Yeah, this sounds really interesting. And I think in our previous talk, you also told me a really cool example on how you found this or where you use those findings. Maybe you can tell this to the audience as well.
Yeah, I think you're talking about the this company Outlier.ai, which I mentioned to you, where they had implemented an anomaly detection system across their entire, well, they consult for various companies. So they were implementing a system for a quick service restaurant chain. And they were essentially just monitoring various metrics that the companies find relevant, where are they generating sales and stuff. And so what happened was is that suddenly they found out that one particular restaurant was selling way more drinks than they had been in the past. And so that was what AI identified, right? And then they had to go in and figure out what happened. And it turns out this particular restaurant actually closed down to do some renovations. And when they reopened, they had moved the drinks fountain a little bit within the restaurant. And it turned out that just moving the drinks fountain to a different location increased sales substantially. So this was something that they could tease out using AI and then apply in different ways in the other businesses that are out there. And there are other really cool examples like this also with finding sort of latent knowledge that's already existing out there. For instance, in the field of materials science, there's been some cool research where researchers examined all the literature on materials science and using sort of regular natural language processing tools that are out there, they were able to discover new materials that were about to be discovered. So what they actually did is they censored the data, meaning they only looked at data until 2010 and then could find out, oh, our AI system is saying these new materials are going to be super cool coming up to solve problems X, Y, Z. And because they censored the data, they could actually show that, you know, in 2010, 2012, whatever, this new material is really actually being used. And so this is kind of discovering latent knowledge that you might not be able to find if you're just using regular approaches and not, you know, really crawling the data.
Yes, very cool. A more scientific and more data-driven approach, even, I would say.
Yeah, and those are very complementary, I really do think.
Yes, it's a great addition, I think. Thank you, Naomi. So maybe let's switch over to the corporate side again. Friederike, we had also a talk and you told me that there are some great benefits, but also challenges when applying human-centered design in a huge corporate company. Maybe you can give me an example on how to address them. Maybe this also kind of as a tip for the audience on how to use the design thinking method in the everyday life.
Well, let me start with what is really one of the benefits. That is, if we want to be industry leaders in the market we're at, we have to use human-centered design. There's no other way around it. Huh? Just technology is not making it. The challenges in a large organization are we ready for like in German, it's like failure culture. Can we admit to not making it in the first trial? I mean, that's very normal, isn't it? That's to be expected. However, we have a LRP where we committed to certain budgets, and that gets very complicated quickly. So it really does take a lot of effort and support from top management in a core team to create rooms and spaces where this can happen. So it needs a strong back, broad shoulders, a lot of good spirits to tell stories. And I think this is something that we all learned. Storytelling is part of the business. And we need to get people excited and keep them excited and help them to ease into accepting failures as something that just happens if you create something great. And that's easier said than done. It doesn't feel good. Just as it doesn't feel good to get rather negative critical feedback from customers. But this is where learning happens. And I strongly believe that this is the path we have to follow. Even though it's not as easy as it is in a startup where you're just like, okay, guys, we look into each other's eyes and we're like, didn't work out, did it? So next try. We have a room and rooms and rooms and rooms full of people that we need to persuade.
Yes, probably a whole different challenge than in a small company. But now let's go back and do a little loop back, flashback to the course. Now we're already in the second half of this panel, and many people also asked about how you could transmit the learnings from the course to your everyday life. And maybe Martina, you can start and tell us what maybe was your favorite thing from the design thinking course, and how do you still use this nowadays after the course?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. And I think my favorite, probably two phases were, one was the understand and observe, and the other one was prototyping. And the understand and observe, why you start as a newcomer. I mean, we got UBS as a wealth management bank as a challenge. Being, I don't know, 7-8 years ago, I had no idea about banking. And I really enjoyed it that you deep dive into the interview phase, you have the users, you come with a fresh mindset and can innovate. And you're asking a lot of why questions. And coming back to what Naomi mentioned, you're really asking a lot of why questions because you're not from that part of the business. So I'm seeing some questions from the audience on how do you integrate, how might we? Just do it, just integrate the why questions wherever and whatever you're doing. Because if you're coming into a corporate, And that's how it's been done for 20 years. Just try to ask the why questions. And that's why I really enjoy the understand phase. And I'm trying to get it back to my work every day. And the other phase that I mentioned was prototyping. Especially we had the dark horse prototypes where we said we're innovating for a large bank, but let's imagine a world without banks. How does the solution look like? And you put some great insights. And I think it's tying back what Friederike also said. With prototyping, you're advocating for the failure culture. You're saying it's okay if the users don't like it. It's good because you learn something, you're innovating more quickly, you're getting the constant user feedback. So that's what I'm also trying to integrate into my daily work since design thinking. Just if you have an idea, make a sketch, do a sketch either on paper or however you want to do the sketch, and show your coworkers that it's okay to get feedback and fail, so to say, because it's really good to find about it now than in 3 years when the product is on the market. So I think this is my two favorite phases, but also two things I'm trying to get back: asking the why question always, getting to the root, and just prototyping and advocating for failure, that's okay.
Yes, and with failure is always more a learning culture, and I think this is very important. So yeah, I think this is a really good point. Maybe Naomi, what could you take away from the design thinking course, and also maybe what are your tips for the SUGAR students from this year?
Yeah, so I have to say it's pretty similar to what Martina said, even though I am in the academic field, but maintaining a real sense of curiosity and trying to figure out, I mean, that's really the core of the job of an academic, if you will, other than teaching. If you're, involved in research, is really about trying to figure out why certain things happen and how they happen. And so that's a fundamental part of it, and it's very much closely aligned. How you implement this, or the specific methods that you use, might not necessarily be one-to-one transferable from design thinking. Some of them are, and then you have to kind of expand your toolbox depending on which why question you're trying to answer. But it's definitely helpful. And if you're in the more qualitative realm of doing research rather than hard numbers quant stuff, then it's even closer related to what you do in design thinking, and maintaining that curiosity and trying to figure out why things are happening. That's the absolute essence of it, and that's also the part that I enjoy the most. So hence going into research.
Very cool. So maybe the last question for you, Friederike. Also, can you give us a tip? Like, can you share with the panel participants what has helped you the most from the course? What did you take away from it? And also, what would your tips and tricks for the SUGAR, how you say, new SUGARees for SUGAR students be? Yes.
Sure. I mean, first of all, this is a great and amazing network. I'm always so impressed whenever I meet someone who took the course. I stayed in touch with a lot of our students, and I'm so excited to meet new students. This is a great network, not just professionally, but for life. And the second thing that stuck with me most is that
Friederike?
that we don't need to rely on large marketing studies. Can you hear me?
Yes, you just blacked out really shortly.
Oh, sorry.
Maybe you can
the
repeat
best
the
net
last.
in Switzerland.
Oh no, maybe you can repeat the last sentence.
We can create our own data sets. We can create our own studies with not much effort at all. We can create proof of where we should be going, where it's painful, where there's an opportunity. You don't need like a bunch of people. Do it yourself. Go out, watch customers, ask questions, create your own data sets. That's amazing. And I sometimes I forget that this is what I can do easily. And this is going to have an amazing impact throughout your career.
Yes. So maybe also as a tip, like just be really hands-on and try new things. I think that's the main message from all of you guys, or also from me. I can underline this. So thank you very much for now. We have some questions in the chat, and I would like to ask you guys. Maybe the first question was, how can students translate the knowledge they learned in the best way to their own life?
I think design thinking knowledge, I'm assuming, or
Yes,
the
yes.
the entire. I mean, design thinking. I think we briefly mentioned on this. Stay curious, keep asking the questions why, and observe and learn to listen. I think to your personal life, not professional life, but also to professional. Try to listen more. What your users are saying, what your coworkers are saying, what your friends and family is saying. I think this is something that is very deeply rooted in design thinking, that you listen to the users. And also in professional life, there are lots of discussions, especially online now. And I would urge everybody to stay present and not do 3 things at the same time, even at virtually. I know we are all guilty of that, but if you stay present and listen, then you get to the needs and the opportunities that we touched upon.
Yes, very good point. I think we are always taught to speak and write, but listen. I think we should do this more. That's true. Maybe another question. I think this might be also for you, Naomi. Someone is writing, my experience is that a very important and also very challenging part is to phrase the how might we questions for design thinking challenges. What is your approach to find and face the right how might we questions?
I think we should hear from our 2 practice colleagues about this as well. In my field, it actually is extremely difficult, and I don't have a super good answer for it, because our research questions actually develop as we go along. So you kind of have an inkling of where you want to go, and then you need to start working on it before you fully find what your actual research question will be. And then it gets really extreme in academia to where you might change, 2 years in, what your actual research question is, because you've had a round of reviews and other academics have looked at it and pointed out some issues. So this is a really extreme case of like failing, and not early, but often. So I have no specifically good answer on how to be very creative and accurate with the how might we questions early on, but I'm hoping that practitioners have some better answers rather than you just have to iterate a bit until you find it.
Yeah.
Maybe if I jump in, my suggestion would be to not spend an awful amount of time on it. Be brave, start with a question, and then appreciate everything you learn along the way. So that is a lot like what Naomi said. The question is important to get started somehow, but what you will observe and hear is much more important and will help you to derive at something amazing anyways. I learned to trust the process, trust the tools that we've been given. They really work under tremendously changing circumstances. So just start with a question. However, Martina, how are you seeing that?
No, I totally echo that. And when you say trust the process, I had to laugh a little bit. It works for the professional life, but also for the growing up life, because I've been, just trust the process. It does work. Start with a question. Don't over-engineer stuff, because things are moving fast and the corporate world is moving fast, and you need to get to the results fast. I know this contradicts some of the design thinking challenges and methods. And when I said listen to your users, this is also sometimes contradicting, but start with something and you evolve from there. Agree, echo that.
Very good points, and very helpful for work life. I think I can agree on that at least. Maybe we have time for one last question, and I have one from Nico, and he's asking, if you work with external teams, for example, SUGAR, which operate very independently from your internal teams on design thinking challenges, how is your process to integrate their insights and solutions into your company? I think this might apply also if you're just working with very diverse teams, international teams, and so on. Yes, I don't know, Martina, Friederike, or also Naomi. What can you guys answer to that?
I mean, yeah.
Maybe I start again. Oh,
yeah. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
It is painful, and it will always be painful. We live in a very agile world. We appreciate it. However, it really isn't easy, huh? And it requires a lot of effort and personal dedication to, even within those teams, continue to listen to each other and give the benefit of the doubt. They want to solve the same solution problem. They want to arrive at the solution. They don't want to create their own thing, but keep working on it. It is as difficult in the corporate world as it is in the course.
Yes.
Yeah, agree. And I see it from, so I was at UBS Challenge, transitioned into the think tank of UBS, and we were very lucky that we had a forum within the company to listen to us and to be able to develop the 2025 and 2030 and 2050 strategies. And the team evolved so much and did so many great things. But yes, it is work. It's work. It's like climbing Mount Everest. It's painful, but it's worth it in the end. So yeah, just continue aligning with the different teams. And if there is difficulties, what worked for me is find the common denominator that everybody agrees on, even if you have to go very, very back. So at least you agree on, I don't know, we want our banking customers to have an easy access to the mobile phone. At least you agree on something, and then go from there to align all different teams. But it's difficult and it is work, and I think it will always involve work.
Yes, I think we can definitely agree on that as well. So unfortunately, we only have 3 minutes left. So the panel InnoBite, what comes after the sugar course, is almost over. I really want to thank you guys very much, Naomi, Martina, and Friederike. It was really cool to have you here and very interesting insights from you all. And also thank you to Maya Kunen, who organized it, and of course to Falk, who made this possible in the first place, I guess. Maybe before everyone can head over to Matteo's cooking class, he's a sugar ambassador from Italy's design thinking course. Every one of you can give me a short last wrap up sentence for the audience. Naomi, do you want to start?
Yeah, I'll be super short. I would just say really nurture that curiosity that you've started to develop in the course. Keep asking why, and use that to figure out how you can fail comfortably in a way by doing it quickly. And that really helps me a lot. And it's something that I still struggle with too, but that's really something that I think helps you make progress in answering your questions.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Martina.
I think just have fun in everything you do, whatever the method or next journey you have, and try to incorporate whatever you enjoyed most in the design thinking course, because then you will achieve the greatest results. And if you didn't enjoy anything, which I doubt, then just have fun with whatever other method you're working with.
Yes, thank you, Friederike.
Well, what can I add? Huh? This is something that you can apply and live really in every environment, in your personal life, in a startup, in a small firm, in a very large corporation, all across communities and cultures. Trust in yourself and don't forget what you learned here. This is really an amazing gift.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for your time. And To the audience, have fun cooking with Matteo. This was the the end of the official first time zone event. I hope you have a great afternoon after this. And yes, thank you to everyone that came and listened, and of course to the participants again. Thank you. Bye.